welcome back for our final video on your journey to a tobacco-free life. I'm Abby Lucius, the Community Development Manager at Community Clinic.
And I'm Amanda Eddy, and I work here at Community Clinic underneath the Northwest Arkansas Tobacco and Drug-Free Coalition, and I work a Tobacco Prevention Cessation Program grant.
And Amanda and I are both certified tobacco treatment specialists. So we're really excited to get to talk to you guys one last time today about maintenance and relapse prevention.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today's topic, which I think is probably the most important topic when we're discussing your journey to a tobacco-free life, it's something that needs to come up on day one when you decide you want to quit using these products. You need to talk about it with your medical provider, with your friends, with your family, and your support system, because this is an incredibly crucial part about how am I going to stay quit from these products. So the first thing we're going to start with today is just going over some of the terminology that we're going to be discussing in the video. First being abstinence, which just means that you're abstaining from using all tobacco products. Next is lapse. So if you've ever had a little slip up or a little lapse in judgment where you maybe still went and grabbed one little pinch of dip or one cigarette, a relapse is when you actually return to that behavior that you were trying to quit. So more than just one time. And then a relapse crisis or high risk situation is just any risky situation that increases your temptation to start using those products again. So Amanda's going to talk to us a little bit about some facts and myths about relapse as well.
Abby mentioned kind of the high crisis, high risk factors. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about what some of those high risk factors are in terms of potential relapse. So something that you kind of need to know is that about 1/3 of relapses occur with alcohol. So if you're drinking alcohol, some people, that's kind of that automatic response. They drink alcohol and smoke at the same time. So that's something to be aware of. 2/3 of relapses occur when other smokers are present. So being around other people that are smoking can kind of lead to that sort of temptation to lapse or relapse. Negative situations and social pressure are two most prominent causes of relapse. So, maybe you hang out with a group of people that, they're like, hey, let's go take a smoke break, or you're around coworkers that smoke, and that's how you socialize. There could be that pressure, effect of them being like, oh, come out with us, at least just come out, Those are kind of some of the general facts about relapse and some factors to be aware of.
And then we also wanted to talk about AVE, which is abstinence violation effect, which is the term you might not be familiar with, but the actual effect you may have heard about or be more familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what the AVE, the abstinence violation effect is basically that feeling of failure after slipping are very common for any change of habit, whether that's eating changes, smoking habit, drinking, anything that you're trying to do. And so what this violation effect refers to is it's very powerful feelings of guilt, helplessness, self-blame, depression, loss of control, and failure that often come where a new ex-smoker slips and has a cigarette. Many ex-smokers associate a slip with failure. So it'll kind of do that self-spiral where, for example, let's say even if you're on a diet for a day, you eat a donut or something happens. It's like that all or nothing effect too.
Just all out the window.
Well, today's done. I'm just going to go ahead and keep doing it. And then you feel that kind of guilt. So that's something to kind of be aware of, is just because you do have a lapse or even a relapse, that's a common part of the process of cessation. It's part of that cycle.
Yeah. So you might be asking yourself, well, I went and bought an entire pack of cigarettes. What am I supposed to do? I think the answer is you need to go ahead and throw that away. After you have that one drag off of that cigarette, you may be feeling a sense of guilt, and that's okay, but you don't need to feel like a failure and that everything is out the window. You'll just go back through the process the same way you did when you started quitting. So get rid of that lighter, get rid of that pack of cigarettes, go throw it in the toilet or throw it in the garbage can and pour something over it so you won't be tempted to reach in there. I know it's probably a costly lapse, but hey, it's really easy for you to get back on track then after that.
Absolutely. And you're not alone in that process too, as we've been kind of talking about. A lot of people do feel that very strong sense of guilt and shame when they kind of relapse into certain behaviors or even lapse into certain behaviors. But it's a normal part of the process for a lot of people, so don't feel alone, and make plans and preparations for that to happen. Even at the beginning of your quit journey, that's so important to do, is to plan for that. So whether that's not associating with certain people that smoke, maybe you cut back on alcohol. In previous videos, we've kind of talked about those sort of situations that may trigger you to smoke. Really reevaluate that, and even moving forward, kind of deal with ways of how to kind of get out of that.
Definitely. There are some other things that people bring up as reasons why they feel like maybe right now is not a good time to stay quit. They might be seeing some weight gain after this. And there's some really good explanations for why you might be seeing a little bit of weight gain. Women in particular are a little bit more susceptible to gaining some weight after they quit using tobacco products. Nicotine, just like many other chemicals, can speed up your metabolism just a little bit. But like anything else, like sugar and anything else that you cut out, after a while your body really does try to return to that homeostasis, that regular state. And so even though you might have put on a little bit of weight right away, does not mean that you can't drop that weight very soon after. Some other things that I did want to touch on about predictors for successful tobacco abstinence. So there are some people who fall in these categories that are known to be a little bit more successful on many of their attempts for quitting smoking. If you're older, if you've gone through this process a couple of times, you've learned what works for you and what doesn't. If you don't smoke that many cigarettes to start, that's a good place. If you score lower on the addiction scale, which basically just measures, how quickly do you grab that cigarette first thing in the morning, and some other qualities. If you are really, really motivated and you really believe in yourself, you absolutely will be successful. If you have lots of support systems intertwined into your journey, if you have ever been hospitalized for a tobacco-related illness, maybe a heart attack, maybe a cancer diagnosis, difficulty breathing, and then if you don't have any issues with psychiatric illness or substance use disorder, all of this to say is that anyone who falls in the opposite ends of those categories does not mean you won't be successful. It just means that you need to do a little bit more preparation and have some good plans in place and have that support system and all those people there to support you on this journey so that you can be as successful as maybe some of the folks in those other categories.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just, remember it's a journey, so it's not an end-all be-all process. A lot of people kind of go through those lapses, or some people are, as Abby mentioned, able to stay abstinent, and then that's it's all part of the process, and there are people out there here to support and here to kind of guide you through that process.
I just wanted to bring up another really common thing that gets kind of thrown around when people are trying to stay quit. It's a lot of conversation around a person's willpower and saying that smoking is a crutch and you have to be strong, and it's all about your willpower to stay quit. And that's just not always the case. Some people really are dedicated and they're able to kind of push through some of those urges. But for other folks, it doesn't mean that you're a weak person, weak-willed. It doesn't mean anything like that. And when people maybe bring up those situations to you, it's really best to just kind of tune out the advice that they're trying to give you and tell you to just be strong. It has been probably a large part of your life being a smoker and something that you identify with. And so that means it's going to be a very big journey and a hard, uphill battle some of the time to quit using tobacco, but it by no means means that you're not capable of doing it and that you're a weak-willed person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something really important to note as well.
And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on was something called urge surfing. And that's basically the idea that you're going to continue to feel sensations and urges to grab a cigarette. You're going to drive by that corner store and find yourself turning into the parking lot without even thinking about it. You're going to be driving your car and be reaching for something, thinking that you're grabbing a cigarette, but you don't have any there because you haven't smoked in 2 years. It's important to know that whether you quit smoking or not, you're still going to have those urges in your life. It's just kind of hardwired into your brain. You're going to have things that trigger you, but you've developed all the coping skills and other ways to manage those triggers. So just know that that's not something about your brain telling you, oh, well, I need to be smoking. That's why I turned into this corner store. That's why I'm reaching for that cigarette right now. It's just something that our brain tries to trick us on sometimes, but certainly it's no different whether you quit or you don't quit. You're still going to have some of those urges.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's really all I had for us today.
We want to thank you guys for kind of following us on this video journey. We have several other videos available. We have 4 other ones in this 5-part series. And so feel free to kind of check that out and follow us at NWA TDFC and Community Clinic, where you'll kind of see this video content. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Definitely. And if you're, halfway on your journey and you need a little bit more support or have some questions about it, you can always call the Quit Line, Be Well Arkansas.
Yes.
And talk to a tobacco treatment specialist today and maybe bounce some ideas off of it with them. And we are constantly available to answer your questions too. So feel free to comment or reach out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.